Hello guys, in this video we will learn how to create controllers and layouts. In the last example we create a number of controllers. One of them is page controller. The page controller has this class page factory and then returns the example. We've seen how we set the title, so if we go to the example index page, we can see that we have the example here and then the meta title example as in the page. You can see in this tab. So this is one of the way of how we create the layout. So we call this page factory result, and then we can display content within this page. So let's take this into a different module and let's name it as a layout example. So if I create a file, layout example etc module.xml, and then we have module into module training layout example is the module name. That's it. And then we have the registration file, registration, and we can have the to registration training layout example. So this is how we create the module from the last time. Now we need to create the front controller, the routes. The routes will be in front end routes file, which is XML file. Then we can just have it, the ID, I'll name it as layout example, the front name layout example, and then the module name layout or training layout example, one word, we don't need before, and that's it. So this is how we create the configuration for the controller. Now what we need to do is the controller itself, controller, then say layout, and index. Call declare tags and then name spacing, training. So just a normal PHP stuff here. Layout example and controller layout class index, implement action interface, let's add the execute method, implement it that is present in the action interface. Let's remove this, and then we will have the page. Let's inject it in the constructor as in factory. Say result factory, just initialize it, and then the only thing I need to do is return this result factory create. This just will gives us the normal layout, the page layout. So this is it. I think we will continue for this after we enable the module. So we just enable the module and just run the setup upgrade. So all this stuff we already been through in the last video, but what we need to do is to link this controller with a layout file. So once we just end with the setup upgrade, we will have a ability to access the layout example. This is the front name. Layout example, and then layout, which is the folder after controller called layout, and then the name of the controller called index. But let's see if that's done. Yeah, the setup upgrade is done. Let's run it. Layout example, layout index, that returns 404. Let's see what's wrong. We go to the etc config. Layout example is already in place. We have front end routes.xml. This is layout example, and then we have controller layout index. Okay, so the controller is not correct here. Should be this. That was a miss. This is a typo. Controller. Oh, what I've done here. Okay, so it was typo here. Let's try it again. Flush cache. CF is cache flush, so it's just a shortcut. Now we have this page. It works just fine, which is the layout example layout index. I will need to create a layout to link to this controller. So the way I do it is, or the way we should do it, we will have a folder called view, and then front end, and then layout. In the layout, I will need a file name.xml. How are we going to name this file? So first of all, what we name it is the file name start with this layout example, and then underscore layout, whatever comes from the controller, and then underscore index. To be exactly is this layout XML, then underscore layout underscore index dot XML. So this is the file we should create. So let me create this file in the layout, create new file. That's it. Let's go onto layout. We have this layout. Now I will create one thing. Now head. In the head I will say title. The title I will say layout example. Now if I just flush cache flush layout and HTML block, just those block HTML maybe. Okay, and now if I refresh, you can see we have this layout example. This is because we add it to the head, and if there is no title, we will place it here. So this is mainly as a meta title that appears in the browser tab, layout example, but because there is no title that's been set in here, then it just put it as layout example, exactly the same as the one in the metadata, meta title, sorry. So we just seen that how this worked, and this is how the file or the layout is linked to the controller. The next step is I want to display some content in here. So what I'm going to do is there is a front end layout, but I will need a template. So the template is in a folder called templates. This is Magento structure, so it's not something we come up with. You have to name it as templates, and you have to name this folder as layout. And now I can just say I want to create a PHTML file. The PHTML file carries whatever name, so I'll just put it as content.phtml, and then I'll just put p tag lorem ipsum, and in the so this is the template, but I want to display the content in this template in here. So how I'm going to do this? First of all, this template is being created but is not being used yet. To use it, you will go to this file, you go under body, and then in the body you will get a reference container called content. So this is every layout file has this content. So you just reference it and then you display the content inside it, and it should show in this page. So this is the content. I'm going to create a block. The block name, I'll just name it as a layout example, and then we need to give it a class. The class I will put is this class Magento framework view element template, and then you give it the template directory or the template file. The template file will start from, so how we start it, first of all we give it the path to the module. The easier way to do it is you give the training the module name, namespace, and then module name, and it should be layout example. When Magento sees this, it will work out the file to the template up to the template, and then put here semicolon, and then content.phtml. So this is the content, this is the path to this file, the content. What we've done here, when you specify the template and then you put the module name, let's close the tag here, this will work out the path to the module and then template, and then whatever after template you need to add it here. So we have content.phtml, we just added it here. This should display to us the lorem ipsum content in the page. So what we need to do is clear cache and then refresh. You can see now the content is displayed on the page, and this is how it worked, how you link the layout and the controllers. So first of all, you create a layout file inside view, front end, layout, and then you give it a name. The name is extracted from the module ID, the route ID, and then the layout index, which follows after controller layout index, and then you put this structure here. This is nothing we create as something we come up with. This is all Magento structure. So you can see there is a block called content. If I look at the vendor, Magento, and then there is a module called theme, module theme, view, front end, layout, default. Then you will have this main content, and you can have, so this is container content. You can see main content area, and there is content aside, and then content button. So what are we doing is we referenced this container, and we added the content in it, which is here. So this is what we have done in our module, in our layout file. We referenced the container as a content, and then we place this block inside it. This block is generic. This is Magento. This is in Magento framework view element template. Or all blocks created could extend from this template, and then we give it the path to the template we have, which is this one, content PHTML, and this way we have displayed this content inside. Now you may ask that we have this layout example, but I want this to be different. This is simple to change, and to change we should call page main title block. So what we call reference block, the name is page main title. This is a reference block, and then there is an action in it. So the action is set page title, and then inside this you will add an argument. This argument you would call it like a page title, it accept it, and the type of the data you're going to pass to it, XSI type as string, and then you can call it like something else. Now if I flush cache, refresh, you can see it's something else now. This is layout example, and this is something else. The other thing is, or other requirement is, whether you want this to be removed. So we can, because we're going to use this again, go reference block, name page title. If you want it removed, you can say remove, and this should remove it from the page. This should remove the something else from the page. So you just flush cache of the layout and block and refresh. You can see it is removed, and we kept this one. Let's revert this back. Let's comment this and bring this back. Flush cache. Just try one more thing. So this is one of the scenarios you want to display different titles from the meta title, or you want to remove it, you don't want to show it. And there is also another requirement you might have. Say for example you have this, but this is static in the layout, but you want it dynamic. You want, for example, based on the visitor, the customer group, customer name, or whatever the requirement is, you want this to be dynamic, or you want this to be dynamic. You don't want it to be static text. This can be done by using the result page. Whatever comes from here comes first, and then whatever you set in here will override whatever you have in here. So for example, let me have this as a result, and then return result. This should work just exactly as it does now. We just stored this in a variable rather than just returning it. So I want to change this to be dynamic. Right, okay, so we will call it as a result, get config, get title, and then set, and we just name it whatever the variable is. Now I clear cache. This text could come from anywhere, so it should be as a dynamic, treated as a dynamic. Now I should see this as Alaa Al-Maliki, as my name displayed, and you can see. And you might also want this to be dynamic, and this is also easy by having this result, and we'll get the layout object, get layout. So this is the layout, and it has access to this file, to this structure. When you say page or result get layout, you will have access to all of these inside the configuration file. And then you just say get block. The block we have is this block. So I'll just copy it and paste it here. Get block. You can have a look here. This is a reference block, so this is a block. You get the name of the block. So result, get layout, and then get block, because this layout has access to all of the configuration in here in this XML file. Get block, and then you see the action name is set page title. So I just copy it, put it here. Now it's a method, and I will just pass in Magento developer. This will override whatever comes here from the layout XML file. This is cached, and now we should see software developer, and this is Al-Maliki. These are dynamic. These will override whatever comes from the configuration file, which is the layout XML file. Now you can see this is what comes in and this is what comes in. So in this way you can have all of these. So just like fix it. All of these are coming as a priority. They will run after the XML file is compiled, the configuration file is compiled. So they will override whatever comes from here. And in this way you can make the page title, the meta title, as dynamic. You can also have this to your preference as dynamic, and also if you don't want this, you can just don't use this, and you can just remove it by this entry. You just pass into it, remove as true. I think this is it, and I hope it was helpful to you, and I will see you next time.